Friends, it is with deep sorrow I am sharing these thoughts with you about Pope Francis. Yesterday, 21st of April 2025, was a very sad day for all of us. The death of Pope Francis was a great loss to the whole nature because he loved nature. He wanted to save nature. It is a great loss to the whole of humanity. He loved the humanity, everyone in the world, especially the poor and the marginalized. His death is a loss to the whole church all over the world, and also personally, it's a loss, great loss to me, because I have been speaking about Pope Francis for the last few years, ever since the process on synodality started, and his reforms and his new thinking was always on my lips. Suddenly I feel that the platform under my feet are drawn. So I feel that a great support that I had, I have lost. Okay, now I would like to share with you some aspects of his personality which touched me most. You know, I cannot speak about him. All the things these days, there are a lot of videos and writings about him, and it will go on coming. A lot of things will come. I would like to share what touched me most in his personality and in whatever he did in the church and to the whole of humanity. He was a friend of the poor and the marginalized. You know, he always spoke about the poor and the marginalized. Already in 2013, in his first encyclical itself, he spoke about the poor church for the poor. Pope Francis, born as George Mario Bergoglio, has consistently demonstrated a deep commitment to the poor and the marginalized, the refugees, the displaced, the indigenous peoples, etc. Rooted in his Jesuit formation and his experiences in Argentina. Already as Archbishop of Buenos Aires, he was known for shunning the grandeur of ecclesiastical residences, choosing instead to live in a modest apartment and ride a public transportation to stay close to the people. He often visited slums, sharing meals with the destitute and advocating for their dignity. And his papacy continued this ethos. In 2013, he famously washed the feet of the juvenile delinquents, including Muslims, during the Holy Thursday Mass, symbolizing service to the outcast. Francis once said, "Poverty calls us to sow hope," emphasizing that true Christian charity involves not just aid, but restoring dignity to those the society overlooks. His actions reflect a theology of encounter, urging the church to go to the peripheries. In 2015, he opened a homeless shelter near St. Peter's Square, ensuring the poor could access showers and haircuts, a practical gesture of inclusion, of concern for the poor and the marginalized. He also declared the World Day of the Poor in 2017, calling for solidarity with those in need. Pope Francis made the poor the center of his mission, stating the poor and the excluded, stating the poor and the excluded are at the heart of the gospel. If we take them away, we are not preaching Jesus, he said. Secondly, he wanted to save nature because he loved the whole of humanity. You know, Pope Francis' encyclical Laudato Si in 2015 marked a historic call for the environmental stewardship, framing care for creation as inseparable from love for humanity. Inspired by St. Francis of Assisi, he wrote, "Our common home is like a sister with whom we share our life," urging global action on climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss. This concern stemmed from the disproportionate impact of the environmental degradation on the poor, whom he saw as victims of a throwaway culture. As a young Jesuit, his work in the impoverished communities exposed him to the effects of industrial waste and deforestation, shaping his holistic view of justice. His advocacy extended beyond words. In 2019, he convened the Synod for the Amazon, amplifying the indigenous voices and decrying ecological exploitation by the rich and the powerful. He also supported the youth climate movements, meeting with activists like Greta Thunberg and praising their prophetic zeal. Francis' vision intertwined spirituality and science, as seen in his 2020 address. We need a new ecological approach that can transform our way of dwelling in the world. The earth, our home, is beginning to look more and more like an immense pile of filth, he says, condemning reckless consumerism and the exploitation of natural resources by the powerful and the rich. For him, ecology is inseparable from human dignity. We are not faced with two separate crises, one environmental and the other social, but rather one complex crisis, which is both social and environmental. You know, so this love for nature is something that we are losing, we are lost. I hope we learn from him. Thirdly, he advocated a borderless Christianity, embracing all. You know, Pope Francis envisioned a church without walls, welcoming all, regardless of creed, status, or background. His 2013 exhortation, Evangelii Gaudium, declared, "I dream of a missionary option capable of transforming everything so that the church's customs can be suitably channeled for the evangelization of today's world." This vision was evident in his interfaith efforts, such as signing the document on human fraternity with the Grand Imam Ahmad Al Taib in 2019, promoting peace between Christians and Muslims. His approach broke from tradition, often stirring controversy, of course. In 2016, when asked about welcoming non Catholics, he quipped, "I don't believe in dividing, I believe in bringing together." His outreach to the LGBTQ community, notably his 2020 support for civil unions, reflected this inclusivity, though it sparked a lot of debate. Francis' borderless Christianity was not about diluting doctrine, but living the gospel's radical hospitality. He says the church is not a toll house, it is the house of the Father, where there is a place for everyone, he declares. In Amoris Laetitia, he extends mercy to divorced and married Catholics, emphasizing accompaniment over rigid rules. His famous, "Who am I to judge?" remark about LGBTQ persons reflects this belief in radical inclusivity. Fourthly, he wanted a different church, a church that journeys together. Francis championed a synodal church, one that listens and journeys with its people, as articulated in his push for synodality. In 2021, he launched the Synod on Synodality, inviting lay people, clergy, the marginalized voices to shape the church's future, saying a synodal church is a church which listens, in which everyone has something to learn. This contrasted with the hierarchical model, the pyramidal model, drawing from his experience in Argentina, where he fostered dialogue in diverse parishes and situations. His mission faced resistance, of course, particularly from traditionalists wary of decentralization. Yet, Francis persisted, emphasizing humility over triumphalism. During a 2013 homily, he warned against a self-referential church that gets sick, urging outreach over insularity. His appointment of diverse cardinals from peripheral regions like East Timor and Mongolia diversified the church's leadership. His reforms, from decentralizing Vatican power to encouraging local bishops' conferences, reflect this vision, the synodal perspective. We must walk united with our differences. There is no other way to become one, he says, rejecting uniformity in favor of unity in diversity. For Francis, a church that journeys together is one that smells like the sheep, staying close to the people's struggles. A church that does not go out sooner or later sickens from the stale air of the closed rooms. Fifthly, he advocated a universal friendship and universal brotherhood. In his 2020 encyclical Fratelli Tutti, Pope Francis called for universal fraternity, stating, "Let us dream then as a single human family, as fellow travelers sharing the same flesh." This vision, built on his lifelong commitment to dialogue, seen in his days as a priest bridging divides in Argentina's polarized society. His 2021 visit to Iraq, meeting Grand Ayatollah Ali Assistani, was a bold step towards Christian Muslim brotherhood, despite security risks. He described such encounters as bridges to peace, reflecting his belief in friendship as an antidote to division. Francis' advocacy extended to practical gestures. In 2019, he hosted a multi-faith summit at the Vatican, where the leaders planted a tree symbolizing shared humanity. His personal warmth, shown in small acts like writing to a Buddhist monk in Sri Lanka, affirm interfaith bonds. He often cited the parable of the Good Samaritan, urging we are called to become neighbors to others, setting aside our differences, our borders, our walls. Critics argued his idealism overlooked theological boundaries, that Francis saw universal friendship as the gospel's mandate, a legacy of unity in a fractured world. He says, no one is saved alone, urging societies to reject the virus of radical individualism. Drawing from St. Francis of Assisi, he calls for a love that transcends borders. Let us dream of a single human family as fellow travelers. His embrace of migrants, he says, they're not statistics, they are people. Sixthly, he was very honest and sincere in his thoughts and his actions. Sincerity and honesty in his leadership. Pope Francis' authenticity defined his papacy, earning trust and criticism alike. His candidness was evident in his 2013 interview with America magazine, where he admitted, I'm a sinner, but I trust in the infinite mercy of God. This humility resonated globally, contrasting with the church's often a formal tone. As a young priest, he faced accusations of complicity during Argentina's dirty war that later clarified his efforts to protect dissidents, showing a willingness to address his past openly. His honesty sometimes sparked controversy, as when he critiqued clericalism, calling it a perversion. In a 2018 letter to the Chilean bishops amid abuse scandals, he didn't shy from admitting institutional failures, pushing for transparency in clergy abuse cases. Francis' sincerity, rooted in his prayerful discernment, invited Catholics to a faith that was raw, relatable, and grounded in truth and honesty. Seventh, he brought out the core of Jesus' values. In his words and deeds, he brought out the essence of Christianity, so to say. Francis' papacy re-centered the church on Jesus' teachings on mercy, compassion, and services. His 2016 apostolic exhortation, Amoris Laetitia, emphasized pastoral care over rigid doctrine, urging the church must accompany with attention and care the weakest of her children. His preaching often drew on Jesus' parables like the prodigal son, the Good Samaritan, to highlight the unconditional love of God. In a 2017 homily, he said, Jesus does not ask for great gestures, but only surrender and trust. His outreach to prisoners, refugees, and the disabled mirrored Christ's preference for the marginalized. When he knelt to kiss the feet of South Sudanese leaders in 2019, pleading for peace, It was a striking image of servant leadership. Francis' life testified to Jesus' call, love without limits, challenging the church to embody the gospel's radical simplicity. Pope Francis' papacy distills Christianity, therefore, to its essence, mercy. The name of God is mercy, he declares, echoing Jesus' prioritization of compassion over legalism. In Misericordiae Vultus, he writes, Jesus Christ is the face of the Father's mercy and launches the Jubilee of mercy to emphasize forgiveness. His focus on the Beatitudes, blessed are the meek, the poor, the peacemakers, challenges a world obsessed with power and wealth. Eighth, it is a sad day for all those who wanted the church to change and renew herself. A sad day for the reformers and liberationists. They lost a friend in Pope Francis. I personally lost a friend in Pope Francis. The end of Pope Francis' papacy would mark a moment for those who saw him as a catalyst for reform. His push for a more inclusive, merciful church, as seen in his 2019 Amazon Synod, advocating for married priests in remote regions, inspired hope among progressives. His understanding of liberation theology has really supported and inspired people who work in the grassroots, working for the liberation of the marginalized and the subalterns. He once said, "The church is not a museum. It is a living body that must grow." The vision that energized those yearning for change and liberation. His personal gestures, like the blessing as same-sex couples adoption in 2020, signaled openness in a historically rigid institution. Yet his reforms faced fierce opposition, with some cardinals accusing him of diluting the doctrine of the church. The sadness for reformers lies in the uncertainty of his legacy's endurance. What will happen tomorrow? His creation of a more diverse college of cardinals offers hope, but the fear remains that a conservative successor could put an end to his mission. Francis' own words in 2020 resonate. We are not the lords of history, but its servants. For those who saw in him a church reborn, his departure would be a call to carry forward his dream of renewal amid inevitable challenges and opposition. 9. He has given enough for the church to live for another 1,000 years, a legacy for 1,000 years. Yes, I would say Pope Francis' contributions through his encyclicals, synods, personal witness, his homilies, they have equipped the church with a roadmap for centuries to come. Laudato Si and Fratelli Tutti provided a moral framework for addressing climate change and global division, while his synodal process empowered the lay participation, ensuring the church's adaptability, a structural change within the church. 2018 revision of the Catechism to declare the death penalty inadmissible set a precedent for evolving a doctrine. He reflected tradition is not the preservation of ashes, but the guarding of a flame. a principle that revitalized Catholic identity. His global impact is undeniable. Appointing over 60% of the current cardinals, he reshaped the church's future leadership. Francis' legacy, blending continuity with innovation, offers a foundation for a church that can thrive in an ever changing world. But the question remains. The question is whether this legacy will be taken forward by his successors. We have to wait and see. The last point I would say is we shall never have another Pope like Pope Francis. Pope Francis' unique blend of humility, boldness, and pastoral zeal sets him apart in papal history. His background as a first Jesuit and first Latin American Pope brought a fresh perspective, evident in his rejection of Eurocentrism and embrace of global South voices. He says, I am a Pope who laughs, cries, and sleeps peacefully, revealing a humility and a humanity rare in the papacy's storied tradition. His willingness to confront controversy, from environmental advocacy to dialogue with atheists, broke a mold of a distant pontiff. While future popes may build on his reforms, none are likely to replicate his charisma or lived simplicity forged in the slums of Argentina. His 2021 apology to Canada's Indigenous peoples for residential school abuses showed a courage to face historical wrongs. As he said, the church must be close to the people, not above them. Francis' singular legacy lies in his ability to make a papacy relatable, transformative force for the divided world. History will remember him as a turning point. You can't put a new wine in old wineskins, he often quotes. And his papacy has stretched the church beyond its limits. Maybe we are looking for new wineskins. While successors may refine his legacy, none will match his prophetic urgency or his knack for embodying the gospel in plain words. Do good, don't hurt others. God is happy when we care for each other. Yes, the world may never see such a Pope again. Long live Pope Francis. Thank you.